Let's take a deep dive into the situation in Gaza right now. How can the IDF tell a difference between a civilian and a terrorist? And what is the perspective of an IDF soldier's view of the day after the war? Today we're joined by IDF soldier Gideon Israel, just back from reserve duty in Gaza. He's seen it all and he's here to give us the truth from a first-hand perspective. Stay tuned and we'll uncover what's really happening on the ground in Gaza. Welcome back to Israel, guys, where we believe in a world of anti-Israel propaganda and Jew hatred. You should have a direct connection to the land and people of Israel. Guys, we're super excited today to have Gideon Israel with us in the studio. But before we pull him on, I want to show you a video of him in full gear in Gaza, cutting there now.
I want to send a message. I want to give a message to the world. Right now, we are in the Netzarim corridor. And I know there's right now negotiations. Will Israel give it away? Will Israel stay here? At the end of the day, Israel will stay in the Netzarim corridor. Maybe not this year, but maybe next year, maybe in another 2 years. And not only that, but Israel will be in all of Gaza, and it will rule over all of Gaza. But I want to send a message of hope. And that message is that Israel is going to turn Gaza into an area of in-demand beachside communities. We're going to turn it into a place with golf courses. We're going to turn it into a place with resorts. People are going to come to Israel and are going to say, forget about Tel Aviv, let's go to Gaza because it's awesome there. And one day, the people of the world will say, how is it that we thought to pressure Israel to give away this beautiful place, to allow it to be turned into a dump for terrorists and humanity haters? And people are going to say, how could we have been so wrong? But it's okay. We're going to turn this place into a Garden of Eden, and all of you in the world are going to enjoy it and you're going to love it. Take care.
Okay, guys, that was a pretty incredible video there that was taken in Gaza as Gideon was leaving. Guys, we're so excited to have Gideon with us here in the studio. Gideon, welcome to the show. We're excited to have, for the first time, a IDF soldier that has had many experiences in Gaza actually here on the show to talk to the world on what's actually going on. Because, as you well know, press was not there, right? There's no press running around in Gaza.
Except for the Arab press who
right, who live there,
who pose as press people, but are just Hamas agents.
Sure. And so you're only getting a one-sided news situation. So that's why I think it's incredibly important that you're here right now. So before we get too deep into the politics of what's going on, the world is all talking about what you've experienced, but they're all talking about it, but you're the only one that's actually experienced it and seen it with a view that can share with people what's actually happening there without the leftist view of pro-Hamas view, let's say, that no one should trust. So we'll talk about that in just a little bit. But first, you just in that video, you have quite hopes, a large hope and view that Israel will return to Gaza and that this will one day be like people golfing, golf courses, beach resorts. Explain that. Like, you really think that's going to happen?
So first, I think it's important to first understand that though there's a war going on in Gaza, and though it's become like a terrorist haven, a terrorist dump, it's a beautiful place. It's a beautiful place. I was in Gaza before Israel evacuated. So my first time in Gaza
before 2005.
Right. My first time in Gaza was in 2002 when I was in my regular army service, and we came to protect one of the communities there called Rafiach Yam. It was actually a community adjacent to what's today Rafiach, or what everybody knows as Rafiach. And it was a community that was about 500 yards from the sea. And you had this, from the watchtowers, you had this like beautiful view of like the sand dunes, the approach and to the sea, the water, and it's just a beautiful place. And after my army service, I would sometimes come back to the communities when I had vacation, and I would just go to the beach there because the beaches were really, really nice. So it's a beautiful place. And what Israel had there, the 20 communities or so, and around 8,000 citizens that lived there, they were beautiful communities. It was a nice place to be. And unfortunately, it was evacuated. And it was clear to all of us that opposed the evacuation that when it happened, it would become, all the places that Israel evacuated would become, terrorist havens, would be used for, nothing good at all. Right. It was clear because it's just understanding your enemies and believing what they say and understanding that this is their goal. When they say they want to destroy Israel, that's what they mean. So fast forward, that was 2005. Fast forward 19 years, and this is my first time back. And we were in central Gaza area, and again, beautiful place. The area we're in, you had a direct view of the water.
You're saying it's still beautiful, even though there's.
In the area we were in, obviously there was a lot of rubble and whatever. But if you sort of look past that, and remember, the Gaza Strip is only 5 miles east to west. Yeah. At some points, maybe a little. And so where we were, our complex was maybe I don't know, a mile, from the water. So you see it great, you see the views great, you see the sunset and whatever, and so it's still a beautiful place, and it can be a beautiful place. What's happened is that like any field that goes untouched, it becomes thorny, and you have snakes, and you have all the things that basically take the place of anything that good that could be done in the field. So Gaza has, for the last 19 years, has been built up into a
terror capital. Like it's the terror place. Yeah,
a terror capital. That it's like the whole economy, the whole population is sort of geared to that. So, and let's say they've done a good job, if that's the goal.
Yeah. So you just finished 2 months there. Like, you just came out. We saw the video. You riding in the truck on the way out. So, but what do you feel like? Because there's a lot of soldiers in Gaza. There's a lot of people fighting for the freedom to return Gaza to what it should be, and what everybody agrees, that it shouldn't be a terrorist den. That the people there should be free. And Israel, in any conservative view, is the answer. Israel has to bring freedom to that area. How do you see that? And maybe more than just how do you see that, how do you feel like the people of Israel, your teammates in Gaza that were fighting with you for the freedom of Gaza? Everybody talks about freedom of Gaza. Well, the freedom of Gaza is going to be made by the IDF soldiers like yourself.
Right.
What do you feel like the overall view, not just your personal view, but like the soldiers that are there seem to me to be very much in a view that Israel's staying there.
So that's right. So that's what I want to say, is that I think beyond what any politician wants, or ideology, or American politician, or world politicians, at the end of the day, the reality is that the IDF, they may leave for a year, for 2 years, some ceasefire agreement, but at the end of the day, they're going to have to go back. The reality is that that Israel will have to be in Gaza for many, many years. My hope is that Israel will rebuild Jewish communities in Gaza, because that's the best. Firstly, it's our land. We have a history of hundreds of years. It's also part of biblical Israel.
Which, by the way, to interrupt you, is that's not just your view. I saw a poll on a major news channel in Israel that the far overwhelming majority were in agreement with you on that.
Right. And most people, even the people who advocated leaving Gaza, or people who, let's call them on the center left and not the far left, they thought, okay, we can live here, they can live there, there's a fence between us, and that's it. October 7th basically told them that that's not possible, that it doesn't matter the fence, they still want to kill you, and therefore some people think, all right, we shouldn't bring back Jewish communities in Gaza, but the IDF needs to be there. There are few people that think that we can just leave Gaza and everything will be okay. And this whole thing of using technology, whatever, it's baloney.
Right.
It's not not even in the realm of realistic. So when I give a a view of or a vision of hope, it's not like a vision of hope that's detached from reality. It's that if you understand, it's like, what did like Churchill say? The farther you go back, the more you can see, in the future. The more you understand the deep reality of what's going on, you understand what has to be. And this is what has to be beyond my ideology, which I think Israel should go back to Gaza. But it's the reality. Israel cannot live with just a fence between them and Gaza, and at the same time. And Israel can't live in a reality where just soldiers are there, because the population is going to get tired, and they're going to say, why do we have soldiers there? Why are people dying because of roadside bombs or IEDs or various things? So
public's going to get tired.
So the only way that it doesn't turn into another South Lebanon is to have Jewish communities, and that's going to happen little by little.
Hey guys, we'll be right back. But first, we're living in incredible times when prophecies our parents and grandparents studied are coming alive before our eyes. Every day, prophecies are being fulfilled as Israel takes center stage. But to truly understand these events, you need a Bible that explains God's obsession with the land and people of Israel. That's why you need the Israel Bible, translated directly from the original Hebrew into accurate modern English while retaining the soul of the ancient text. Inspiring verses are written in English transliteration so you can pronounce the holy language. It also has charts and maps to deepen your study. But what makes the Bible truly unique is the Israel-focused commentary on every page, clarifying prophecies and explaining how current events tie into the final redemption. This is the Bible to guide you through the end times. Click the link below now to order the Israel Bible today. And don't miss this opportunity to own the only Bible focused on God's relationship with the land of Israel. What do you think the soldiers, what was your feeling, and as well, you speak for your unit, those that you were around, what did they feel like when they heard things like right now Biden at the DNC is saying things like a lot of innocent people are being killed on both sides? He's equating that, well, you have Hamas, but then you also have Israeli aggression. He's equating these as equals. And that's what do you think a soldier feels like when an ally really dumps them? Like that in a public even saying that the protesters outside the DNC right now, they have a point. He just said that as well. Just today, we saw a text from Biden to Bibi stating that he's really pushing for a ceasefire. He's pushing for a surge in aid to help Gaza, and also these would lead to a hostage release. So that's his view. A very Western view. But how do you think the soldiers who have the opposite view? You get the hostages in a very complicated situation, but you bring them out by force. You bring them by the strength of the military. You achieve your goals. And the opposite of what the West is telling Israel, you need to be weak. You need to appeasement. You need to appease them. You need to negotiate with them. What do you think a Middle Eastern soldier? You're previously American, but you're with a lot of you've become Middle Eastern.
I feel like I have a little of both. I still have the American side and the Israeli side.
But you're with a lot of Israelis that are Middle Eastern that live and breathe this environment around them. They're not Westerners. They don't have your upbringing where you can understand where America's coming from. You've now learned what the situation here in the Middle East is. What do those soldiers feel like when they have this kind of stuff going on?
So I think a lot of soldiers are Trump supporters because because Trump speaks the language that dictators and just bad people in general understand, and they understand what strength is, and they answer to strength. So that's the first thing. Obviously, they feel some of Biden's comments are detached from reality in general, so, in terms of Gaza. But I do want to make a point about the civilians, and this is something that I think is very misunderstood.
The Gaza civilians or Israeli?
The Gaza civilians.
The
Gaza civilians. So there was, on one of the breaks I saw, when I was home, I saw a show with Piers Morgan's and some Israeli spokesman, and he's talking about, civilians dead and whatever. And I want to say, explain to me, what is a civilian? Like, in your eyes, Piers Morgan, or even any other broadcaster, explain to me, what is the civilian that you're talking about that has been killed? Because the reality is that when you're operating in Gaza, the Hamas network, first of all, no one's wearing uniforms there anymore. No one's wearing uniforms there. So one of the ways that they operate is that you have a guy who's walking around in civilian clothes, and he's just, walking nonchalantly, and he's going to go to a building where there's a cache of weapons, and that's, let's say, near where the IDF's operating. So he's going to go there, get the weapon, shoot it quickly, and then run away. So is he a civilian on the way? When does he stop becoming? And then once he shoots it, then he walks out, with his Nike shirt and whatever. Then he's back and jeans. He's a civilian again. And then you have a situation where there could be a building where you have like a group of women in their 60s, Arab grandmothers. Now, do they look like civilians? Sure, but what's their job? Their job is to sit there and call Hamas and tell them when the IDF's in the area. And then there's other types of civilians whose job is to go to buildings that the IDF has been in and look around, see what kind of intel they find, see what the IDF left behind, see whatever intel they can gather. And then there's another type of person he lives in a certain building, and in Gaza, and no one's living there anymore because most people have ran away, and he's living there with his 2 sons, who might be 3 and 5, with his wife and his mother. Now it looks like just a family, but what's the reality? He's a terrorist. His mother's a terrorist. His wife, but it's a terrorist family living together, operating at the orders of Hamas, doing certain things, and so all these like situations are all people in civilian clothes. There's all people who, if you had some guy take a video in Gaza and just tell him to start crying, these are civilians. And besides that, when the IDF comes into a certain area, so if the IDF doesn't get there quick enough, so a lot of let's say the Hamas soldiers run away and they go to these refugee encampments, and if they had uniforms, they just take them off and they become your guy smoking a hookah and just waiting until the IDF leaves, and then they'll go back there and they'll be their soldiers. So between all these types of people, the civilian network, and between the people who are celebrating when the hostages were brought into Gaza and giving out cookies and cake, and it's a whole civilian network that it is Hamas. Like the whole idea of separating, there's Hamas and Gaza. No, there's not. I mean, similar.
Well, what do you talk about in a vote? Just to make it clear, you talking about what, 70-80% are voting Hamas, right?
Well, I mean, Hamas was elected with the overwhelming majority. But I'm saying when you go into houses, when you're doing house-to-house fighting, you see there's the paraphernalia of Hamas, and when you see Palestinian paraphernalia, I'm telling you, no one has paraphernalia that says West Bank and Gaza 2-state solution.
No,
that doesn't exist. And by the way, in most houses, you have a Dome of the Rock. Meaning this is a religious war. It's not about we just want this 25-mile by 4-mile strip to be our home. No, it's about the Dome of the Rock.
Define, just for everybody, list me a few things. When you go into a house, generally, what do you see? Just tell me, like, when you go in there, this is an Arab house 90% of the time, or maybe it's more. What do you see?
So it all depends. There's some houses that are obviously used as positions. So for example, there could be a house where you have like the windows are all bricked up except for small like shooting holes. So a guy can last in there with a machine gun for a while because you're gonna need an airstrike to take out that position. So there's houses like that. There's houses that are regular houses, but when you start because every house we go into, we're searching for guns, we're searching for other types of intel and so forth that is expected to be in the house.
They've got Palestinian flags.
Yeah,
they've got Dome of the Rock pictures.
Yeah,
I've heard Mein Kampf a couple times. Probably less. You get translated into.
We actually saw in one house there was one of Bibi's books translated into Arabic.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So lots of just paraphernalia that would again make your point that these things are aligning them with Hamas theology.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So again, the question would be, who's a civilian, who's not, and that's a really tough one. That's a really tough one for the West to decide.
There's also another point to make about the civilians. People some people praise the IDF, and sometimes the IDF praises itself, or Israeli politicians, about how we send all these leaflets into certain areas that the IDF's gonna be operating in, and they send text messages and they make phone calls and whatever. Now, some people think that's that's very moral, and some people say, well, even that they do that, that's not enough. The important thing is to understand the reality is that when you do that, you're actually endangering IDF soldiers because when you tell them
you're giving away your perfect intelligence,
when you
your
tell
element of
them
surprise.
like there's a map of you want to, let's say it's 2 miles by 2 miles, let's say it's a mile by a mile. So when you're operating that mile by a mile strip, like how many entrance routes are there? So you're basically telling Hamas, get into your positions because in the next 2 days we're going to be coming in there. So I know that some people think that that's a great moral idea, and look how the IDF's so great, but no other army would do that because it's stupid. Unfortunately, I guess because of so much criticism of Israel, so the IDF has resorted to that to sort of show, listen, we're trying to be as moral as we can, but at the end of the day, that endangers the soldiers, and it's
right. It's no one else would do that. But again, that's the way the Israel has to operate within the immense pressure from every corner of the globe, directed at the IDF soldiers, who are the brunt of this international campaign against Israel and for Hamas. Like literally, that's what we see on the DNC. That's what we're seeing. That's the way it's translated. Maybe the West doesn't understand it that way, but that's what you're saying. It is translated that way to the Middle Easterner. You're not giving aid to the ally Israel, who needs that support to fight these Gazans, terrorists, and to bring freedom. That's the real goal. Anybody waving a free Palestine and free, there's no freedom in any of that jargon. That's actually more bondage for even the so-called Palestinian Arab. By
the way, the truth is that I think it was General Sherman from the Civil War. That was the one who made a line from, I think, Savannah to the sea and just burned everything in the way. I think he had a line that one of the purposes of war is to break the will of the enemy to fight, every nation has different things that bothers them. So for Israel, what bothers us is casualties. When we have a lot of casualties, soldiers dying, civilians dying, that really is difficult for the population. For the Arabs, for the Muslims, it's land. It's land. So that's why like the Netzarim corridor, that is, like a thorn in their eyes because the IDF has taken what they believe is their land. And the way to actually get the hostages, probably one of the ways to get the hostages back, not only through military force, but the more land that Israel starts taking, starts putting caravans there and starts building, that's when the Arabs will get serious, the Muslims will get serious and say, you know what, stop building and we'll get the hostages back, because that's what bothers them. Land bothers them, and that what I've shown is that also is how important it is that the Westerner realize that what necessarily bothers the Westerner is not what bothers the Muslim, or not.
Well, the Muslim's actually even more dedicated to fighting when his brother dies. Or like he translates that opposite. He's not discouraged. He's encouraged to fight more, right? That's the whole jihad. The whole idea of fighting is like they're now empowered. You can also die for this cause, right? I mean, that's the way they would view it.
It's a culture of jihad. It's almost it's an honor to fight and die. So,
but I like what you said. What really hurts them is when you take the land. The West needs to understand that. I think that's a critical point that the West is missing, that an IDF soldier from the middle of Gaza comes back, and that's crystal clear, the issue at hand. The West is not understanding what's going on. You, the soldier in Gaza, is understanding that it's all about this land. And when you take that land, when you declare sovereignty, you win. And that's the way you win in this war against the Arabs. Israel, we're going to have to wrap up. Gideon Israel, has been awesome to have you with us on the show. And Lord willing, you know what? The dream will come true. We'll have some beautiful beach resorts in Gaza for the whole world to come and
the whole
enjoy
world,
and visit.
and it will compete with Tel Aviv, and people will land in Ben Gurion, and when they look at the tourist landscape of Israel, they'll say, hey, let's go visit Gaza. I heard there's some nice stuff to do there.
That's right. Okay, guys, it's been awesome to having you on, and hopefully this has brought some education, some light to the world about an issue that is very misunderstood, I would say, on the global scene. So again, Gideon Israel, thanks for jumping on with us, and as always, back to you guys. Stop listening to that propaganda, the lies, and connect with the truth of what's actually happening here in Israel. One last thing before you go. If you're an IDF soldier, if you've been a part of saving lives since the war broke out, we want to hear your stories. And I believe everyone on our channel would also like to hear from you. There's an email down in the description below. Send us a line at that email address, and we want to get your story out.